editing, posting. So if I'm looking at this from my experiences and what I deem valuable and what I tend to hate the most, when it comes to posting, that is often the thing that drives me up the wall where I'm like, it's done. I just want this out. I don't want to spend extra time on it. And so, what I'm going to do for posting is understand all the different stages that go into posting. So, if this means video is done and it gets to posting, what goes into it? Sometimes it's opening Instagram, maybe it's choosing the file, then it's writing the caption, then it's scheduling, or you post it. So when you write out all the different stages that go into each important stage, you then figure out what's worth your time and what's not worth your time. And you determine that by what feels like you're pulling out your teeth. So when you're going through all of these stages here, the micro stages within each stage, you figure out, all right, well, I have no problem like scheduling the post, but I find it annoying that I have to write the captions. And so you then take all the things that drive you up the wall the most to the least, and you figure out a way to outsource each thing. And outsourcing doesn't necessarily mean putting it into an AI. It means literally sending it out to a person that you'd be willing to pay to manage this for you and get it off your plate. And so that's for you to determine within each micro stage. Now, within, for example, the editing stage, you understand the importance of it, but you may not have the ability to do it because other aspects of your business, if you were to not show up, the business will collapse. And so this is where you rank each of the stages that are the most mentally taxing for you. I wouldn't necessarily call it just mundane because if you could throw the mundane stuff while you're running the business, it's small things that are a bit annoying, but you could manage it, especially if you're running this as a one person business. And so the way I approach it is that if I were to rank each thing here, I would firstly look at, all right, out of all the things that I do here, which is the thing that drains me the most, that I wish I had someone on board doing this for me? If it's editing here, then at first, in the worst case scenario, I'm going to write out all the steps that go into editing. Where if I were to outsource this one stage at a time, I could do it for pennies. So let's say it's like upload the video. Sometimes it's open CapCut if you use CapCut or whatever software, it could be Adobe. Then it's like cut out pauses, for example, all the things like the micro details that go into editing the video. So cutting out pauses, adding captions, adding overlays, like all the things that go into editing. And then I'm going to rewrite etc. because there's more stuff that goes into editing. And then you upload it to schedule to posting. You could figure out a way to set this up with an AI if and only if you know exactly what goes into the editing process. Because if you just outsource it to a general AI and say, edit this for me, it has no context for what it's editing, what's good editing, and whether or not it's actually doing its job. And so when you are outsourcing these things, you act as if you are writing a document for the person that you're hiring and you're educating them on what it means to edit a video for your business. And that's the type of context that you want to be writing. You don't want to bring on an intern to then say, edit this video for me because it only has the context that it understands. And so when like the easiest way is of course like using an AI tool, but outsourcing to an AI for the sake of outsourcing it is not going to work. You might as well do it yourself. And so before you even consider sending it out to an AI or looking for an AI tool or even hiring people on either, let's say, Upwork or even Fiverr. Like you don't have to give someone, I mean, in Canada we have a T for it, but like a 401k, for example, like you don't have to build out a 401k for this person unless you want them working in house. Like you could go to someone on Upwork that is billed hourly and you could give them the entire SOP for what goes into editing your videos so that they have something to follow. You'll know that they are worth just telling them, hey, edit this for me. And you could completely dismiss your editing process if when you hire them, you give them the step by steps, but they come out with something even better than the things that you're writing. Because then they're coming in as the expert. And those are the people worth keeping. Those are the people where if you would work for them to learn from them, they are worth the hire. But in the meantime, if you're on a budget, then it's better off tracking every single thing that goes into a certain stage of the process and then sending it to the person that you hire for pennies or putting it into an AI. That is the way to go about this that I would recommend and even have done so in the past when outsourcing things and projects to other people and even to an AI. Like when I'm building my own agents, that's the process that I have. And so that is an example for the editing process. When it comes to stuff like researching and ideation, I could go through these as examples, but the big thing is understanding and writing down in every single detail what goes into every single thing. And when something works, working backwards to figure out how that was done. Because then you could figure out, all right, well, if a video was done, give me one sec. Do I have to add in people here for a sec? Just want to make sure things are done here. Okay. If, for example, I want to outsource research, by the way, before I even go deeper into this, I want to make sure what questions you each have before I move on. Because if I move on without answering the questions that you have, then I'm going to lose you for the rest. And so I know for a fact that there were some people that had questions in their head that they want clarification on. And I'd rather address this now before I move on because it gets a bit heavier afterwards. Like Kia, Alex, or even Sydney, if you guys had any questions, you could just open up your mic and I'll be ready to answer. If not, just give me a thumbs up and we'll move on. All right. Thumbs up here, thumbs up here. Cool. All right. And I'm assuming, Cindy, you're all good. All right. So no questions then? Okay, cool. I'm assuming that you guys processed it, but if ever you have a question and you don't want to interrupt me, even though I invite you to, ask it in the comments and I'll address it in the chat. Okay.
Wait, I actually had a question.
Yeah, question. Yes.
Wait, okay. Yeah, I froze. I was like trying to like unmute myself because I had a question about this.
Yeah.
So this is not something I'm like super great at, is like systematizing things. And when I got sick, as you know, back in March for like 10 days, and like doing something like this ahead of time would have made it where like even though I'm like telling you guys be more consistent, I still get taken out at the knees because Liam is way better at this stuff than I am. So I get a bit like there's the things I don't like doing, which is like setting up the system in the first place, which is this. I don't know, do you have like a recommendation on like how do you, like when I see this, it's a bit overwhelming to me because I'm overwhelmed by even like Excel documents. Yeah. And I'm overwhelmed by systems in general. So like, do you have a process that got you to this point? Because that's something I could literally use because I'm overwhelmed by the idea of systems.
Yeah. So I'll give an example here. So if I like the easiest way is to track everything that goes on within the business from like start to finish. And I mean like
Okay, so tracking I got, but for some reason, like I mean, you saw it. I didn't post for like 10 days because I
yeah.
was sick. So how get what can I?
So I'll do an example then. So let's say like, and this is just for like visual sake, like from like start to finish. So let's say you you have someone coming to you ready to buy, but then afterwards they leave the program or whatever like the process is. And in that process, there is like onboarding. In this process, there's content that you have to make. Like, actually, this is a part. I'm overwhelming you here even more. Let me do it better. Give me
Yes, underwhelm me, please.
underwhelming me. So everything that goes into running the business, and you could categorize this in pillars. So you have like marketing, which is your content. You have your sales. You have your fulfillment, and then we'll keep it even simpler. We'll have admin. So just to like categorize everything in your marketing, it could be you making content, and in content creation, there's ideas, film, edit, and post.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you are trying to figure out what's worth outsourcing, and outsourcing is a general term, like it could mean whatever you want. It could be hiring or it could be like putting into an AI if you wanted to. But you look at all these things and you're like, all right, which is the things that has the biggest leverage where if I were to leave this, the thing would collapse. And most likely, I mean, I'm just going to say, for example, like we'll say filming. So, filming,
Yeah,
even though it's a heavy burden, that's not necessarily the first thing that you want to outsource first. Maybe it's a burden,
right. Because only I can do that.
like, yeah, but maybe filming is a burden in and of itself because you have ideas that are in your head. You have to worry about editing and you have to worry about posting. And so you figure out if filming is a bottleneck because it's a thing that you hate, or is it because you have other things that are taking up mental bandwidth. And so if it's the latter, which is, well, I got to worry about editing and I got to worry about posting, then these are the things that you would hire to then figure out, well, do I actually like filming, or do I just have more things on my plate that makes filming a burden? And so that's an example where you may want to be making content for yourself and outsource every single thing so you can enjoy making content, but you may be hating making content or don't have time to make content because you have so many things in your mental bandwidth that you have to worry about that's preventing you from getting to a flow state to do the
Yeah,
thing
I
that
can
you
see
want to do.
that because I love making my content, but I do ideation, I do filming, I do editing, I do posting. Like I'm the only person who touches mine. So I can definitely see how if I this is, I could outsource ideation maybe. Maybe.
You definitely could, because like before you even worry about this stuff, like I mean, there's different ways of approaching it too. But an example, I'll touch upon this example, and then I'll go back to this. But you may hate certain process of content creation, even though you love content creation. But the biggest mistake that people will make is that they outsource the thing that they love first because it's the thing that they know, because they know everything that goes into the thing that they love, like coming up with ideas, filming, editing, and posting, that they know all the micro details that go into it. So it's easier to outsource it. But the problem is that if you outsource the thing that you love, then you start being almost an admin to your business and you forget why you went into it to begin with. And you lose that fire that got you into it. And so the mistake is that because people know one area of the business the best, that they outsource it first. But the way of approaching it that I see has been best is going through everything that could be blocking your ability to get into a full day flow state here. And if, for example, admin would be like customer support, it would probably
Yeah.
be all that thing. I would go into all the things that require a 10 out of 10 service in the admin department or 10 out of 10 execution in the admin department. And the easiest way would be like hire a 10 out of 10 guy that you would have to pay premium for. But the other alternative is, let's say, like paying someone pennies, but for different micro stages. And knowing that admin is done, you then move on to fulfillment. And then you slowly and surely outsource all the stages of each process until you don't have to be in the picture anymore. And that's where you could do what you want. And that's why companies have CFOs, CMOs, like, so the CEO could focus on what he wants to be doing. It's because if he were to focus on every single other department equally, then he wouldn't be able to fulfill everything that he wants to film. But that's where we look at it through a big picture lens where at some point you're going to be hiring people. But today we're going to be going over alternatives budget wise that you guys can do in the event you can't afford other people. So, big picture idea, just give me a thumbs up if you guys have gotten the general gist of what was discussed here. Or if you have any questions, throw in the comments or even like open your mic. But I'm assuming that I saw Cindy's thumbs up there. If there's no other thumbs up here, I'll assume you guys are good and we'll just keep moving on. But we'll go through an example of how to do it on a budget if you don't have the ability to hire. And so that's where I've been in the space for the last like couple of years, like figuring this out with AIs because I've been in positions where I couldn't afford to bring on people, but yet my mental bandwidth to doing a bunch of tasks prevented me from doing the things that drove the most revenue of the business. And at the time, it was creating content. I mean, it still is creating content, but you get the point. So, in this example, you have different tools you have access to. So, you have Gemini on Google, you have Claude, and you have everyone's familiar with ChatGPT. And so, this would be the wrong way in content creation if you were to use these tools to outsource your thinking. The wrong way, and I do not want anyone doing this till the end of time, is to immediately go to, let's say, ChatGPT and say, give me content ideas. If I were to do this and I told Kyla I did this, she would have kicked me out of the country by now. But I don't do that. So, still safe. So, okay. I the reason why this is terrible is because you don't have any context. You pretend that ChatGPT is an intern. So when you are hiring an intern, they have a basic level of understanding of how the world works that if you give it an instruction like give me content ideas, it'll give you the bare minimum. And that is why there are so many people on Instagram where when they speak, it sounds AI scripted. It is because they are using the bare minimum of the AI itself. They're not giving it context. So, an example for an intern, and we're going to switch to this. If you choose to hire an intern, I'm just going to call it intern method just for conversation's sake. If I hire an intern, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to train it. I'm not going to go in there unpaid or even paying them minimum wage to run my business. I'm not expecting it to run my business. I'm expecting it to handle the micro details and I teach it other skill sets as I'm developing this intern. But most people don't approach the same way with the AI models that they're working with. And that is why you get scripted content that doesn't even work. And that's why when you search on social media, you have people reading out scripts and you can sense when something's AI, where they say, with blah, 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 it's not because of this, it's because of that. That's an AI pseudonym or a habit or a tendency, whatever you want to call it that. But you can sense that it's AI. And so when you are training the model, you treat it like an intern. So when you say, give me content ideas, you assume that when you tell it to the intern, it knows how to research, it knows how to determine what's valuable and what's not valuable. And then it knows how to distinguish what's valuable based on the goal of your business. So let's say you're like, I mean, same thing. And then it knows how to structure the content. It knows how to write hooks. It knows how to format the content so that, well, you get the point. So it knows how to format the ideas. It knows how to edit the videos. It knows how to post it. But you assume that the intern doesn't know how to do any of these things. So your job is to teach it how to research, how to determine what's valuable. And that can only be determined when you work backwards to how you think through things, especially if when you think through these things, you get the most results. So if you make content that you know if you make this piece, it will go viral and it does 10 out of 10, you have to work backwards to how you're able to think through these things. How are you able to determine what was a valuable piece of information and what wasn't? How are you able to structure your ideas? Because it's not enough to say, oh, I use my vibes to edit this thing. You have to be crystal clear, and that is why tracking the data for when you're posting, when you're working with us, and when we're telling you what's good and what's not good, having in clear detail in a Google Sheet, in a Notion doc, even in a notepad, whatever it is, just a way to track everything that is working and what's not working, why it's not working, and then testing it out and refining it to the point where when you make a prediction, you get the outcome that you're looking for. And that's when you know you have a great system. But you can only know what's a great system when it's tracked either in a Google Sheet, Notepad, or what have you. When you have this like tracked, you have this tracked, so on and so forth, then you could put it into a Word doc of some sort, as an example, and you could send it into a ChatGPT to give it context. And these are what we call context docs. So when you have, let's say, 300 pages of a document, you put into a ChatGPT and it has context for how to do research, how to think through ideas, how to come up with these ideas, because you have put time and effort and it's been time and tested. Then you're able to refine the process where when you ask for it to give you content ideas, you can see what it comes up with and you can determine if that's how you would come up with the idea. If not, then you have to go back to the drawing board until it gives you the answers that would be suffice for you. The bad way of approaching it is assuming that it knows better than you and you trust it. And that's why it's so important to know what goes into a good hook, what goes into a proper call to action when you're making the content, what goes into researching these ideas, because you are pretending as if the intern is coming up with these ideas. So if you say, give me content ideas, and the intern gives you the content ideas and comes up with the hooks and all that stuff, you're not thinking the intern knows more than you because you're the one that taught the intern how to think through these things. So you're almost evaluating it every single time. And so if an intern were to come to you and say, all right, here's my content ideas, here are the hooks that I wrote that you should be reading out, here's the body, here's the call to action, here's how to edit the videos, and you look at this and you go, no, that's not how I would think through it. then you go back to the drawing board and figure out what was the first thing that broke. If the first thing that broke was determining what's valuable, but the research was perfect, then you have to solve this box until it could think through exactly how you would think through it. Does that make sense, guys? Like the thumbs up, comments, all good. Tell me no, you're unclear. Please leave this chat so we could hang out with each other and talk shit about you. No, okay. But so far so good then. Okay. And I'll go through an example because you guys would probably have to give me more context if I were to do personal examples for you. For like the first bottleneck that you guys are dealing with, that we could figure out how you would outsource it if you were to do it on your own without hiring.
Can I throw something in that I struggled with in my early days? It was like a control thing.
No.
No.
Okay.
Okay. So then, yeah. So I used to have this very like protective. I operated from this place where everything had to be under this specific way, otherwise I was gonna ruin the whole brand and people were gonna see me wrong. And this was like years ago, but it took me some time to get out of that space, and it's something that I see consistently with everybody, not necessarily anybody here, but everybody that's like getting their feet wet with the content space. Is like you kind of get married to this brand identity that you don't really have yet, and then you struggle to release, or at least I did. So if none of you guys have ever dealt with this, then I'll be the stupid one here. But it was like, I can't do this because it's outside of the identity, or I can't use this editor that's, there used to be like a lot of editors on Upwork that would be like $8 an hour, and I could completely afford that. But then I didn't want to do that because I was like, well, it's not my edit, so it's not going to match the vibe that I'm trying to curate. Or, oh, that's like, I don't want to film over there because it's not going to match the vibe on my page. And this was way before I had any kind of performance. This was back when I was trying to be like Miss Model thing and like use Instagram as a portfolio. But for some reason I had in my head that it had to be this like level of precision and control. And I don't know why I assigned it to that, considering I hadn't had any performance on the page. But that is something I see a lot of people dealing with, as far as like, so like, you tell me like, you need to delegate this, delegate that. And like, now it makes sense. It completely makes sense. You have to do that. Otherwise you don't have a business. You have a you've created a job for yourself that sucks worse than having a corporate job. So at this point I understand the value, but there was a point where I didn't understand the value. So I'm curious if you have a particularly successful method of like working around that. And again, you guys can tell me if this is just a me problem, but I really did struggle with the idea of giving up little points of control, because these are our businesses and they're our babies. And it's like, you can tell me to get an editor and I believe you to get an editor, but I'm not going to do it because I need to control the whole ship. Like, does that make sense?
Yeah. And that definitely have dealt with this when I was
Has
outsourcing.
anyone else dealt with that? Does anyone deal with that? Or is that just like a Kyla problem?
It's a Kia problem too.
Okay. All right. Okay. So I'm not crazy. Okay.
So that's where the easiest way, the answer is gonna be coming soon to directly answer that. But that's where we go back to the very beginning, which was, is it worth hiring the expert, or is it worth saving money, but you have to track every single detail to train the
But
next
I'm talking about before that.
But yeah,
So like,
yeah.
like I think all of us have had the experience where it's like, I'm telling you to do it, but then like I don't see the like, I'm so precious with my brand and I'm so precious with my social media that I'm scared to go outside of it at all, because I'm afraid that maybe it's going to go viral in front of the wrong people and not accurately portray me, or maybe my hook was 2 words away from what it should be and an editor's not going to be able to capture the exact nuance that I wanted specifically. Or I'm afraid that if I go use it, this is a big one. A lot of people in the program right now, they don't want to use AI because they're afraid it doesn't 100% capture their essence. It's about like the jewelry girl.
Hmm.
So like, I'm maybe this is the wrong place to ask this, but my question is more like, what did you do? It's not something I struggle with now, but what did you do to get over that? Because you got over it faster than I did. Like,
Yeah.
obviously, you're a big fan of this stuff where I fought this stuff the whole way. I was like, I got to do it myself. No one is going to treat it as seriously as me. And I think that contributed to me being stuck for a lot longer than I needed to be,
Yeah.
because it's not like 6 years ago someone didn't tell me, hey, you're like wasting time doing this, you could easily outsource it. I heard it and I did nothing with it. Very much like this stuff that you're saying, someone told me and I didn't do anything with it, and as a result I stayed stuck for a lot longer than I needed to be. So I'm curious maybe how you got
Yeah.
past
So
that.
yeah, I'll give it an example then. So when I was managing my finances, I had like I was worried that the person that if someone were to manage my finances, like just a general accountant, that they wouldn't understand like how I'm thinking through organizing everything, and I wouldn't want anyone touching that but myself. But the short answer to it is that it's almost like you have to put your hand on the stove to realize that it's hot, where you have to almost go through the experience of what happens when you don't outsource it and the impact it has on everything else that you have.
Which I did, by the way. I went through the pain of it, and I would say it added like 3 years to my learning curve.
Yeah. And so that's where like the one way to go about this is like doing a lower risk area version of it. So like that's why I keep mentioning finances, because it's something that is completely outside of the content creation space, where content creation is more creative and the finance side is more like logistics. And so
Yeah.
it's for you to really get the feeling of knowing what it's like when you trust someone else's knowledge to take care of your baby almost.
Yeah.
And when you see what goes into that, to then determine what would have been the situation if it was just you managing that, then you then work your way in all the other departments that you have more and more and more and more attachment to. And so if the next thing after finances that is like a dread, but you want some control over is like, let's say sales, then you figure out what's the difference between hiring a guy that is a better sales guy than myself versus me doing everything. You then distinguish what's worth it. Like for example, I would like even a micro detail example. It's much worth it to you if you were to like get your car repaired by a mechanic than it is figuring out yourself, because you're like, even though I know like all the ins and outs of like fixing the car and all that stuff, I just I want this off my plate. Like I don't need to focus on it, even though I care about this so much. It's my car. I want to make sure it's fine. I trust that the person that treats this like it's their favorite thing to do in the entire world, even though I really like this thing, I know I'm in good hands and I can focus on the things that I truly want to be doing. And if the content creation example is something where you have the most attachment to, but it's the most difficult thing to delegate, it's researching Andy Warhol's method, where when he created art, he was controversial in the art world because he would systematize all the processes that went into making the art. And the only thing that he did was start with the general idea and then approve the process. And so when it's the artist method versus the Andy Warhol method, with the artist method, you obviously, I mean, obviously, like it's not obvious to a lot of people, but within the artist method, they are controlling the entire outcome from the idea that they put on the canvas or even on the sculpture to finishing the entire thing all on their own. But within like the Andy Warhol method, I forgot which book it was, but someone gave a example. Oh, it was the same book, by the way, Buy Back Your Time. He goes into the Andy Warhol method. So he mentioned that he would give the overall idea of what he wanted within, let's say, like a sculpture of some sort. And then he had people that would build the frame, and then he would have people that would paint the thing, and then he would have people that would mold it, even dry it. And then he would come back in the very end to add the small tidbits and details. And so the people that go into, let's say, editing the video, even cutting out the pauses, they're the ones that often get like 80 to 90% of the process done. And then you come in the very end where you almost add in your refined details to then go, all right, it's good to go. And you're not necessarily losing out on the ability to have a say because you're metaphorically the artist in the process of making the video. But you're taking away the things that shouldn't be part of your mental bandwidth, like I mean, of course, if you want to be controlling the entire outcome, you could. Like, I'm not telling you not to consider this path if that is something that you absolutely love to do. If that is the stage that you want to be in, then outsourcing admin tasks, outsourcing like everything that goes into like running the business, like that's why there's different departments in different businesses, is so that you can have full range, be in your office and just be an artist. But if you want to outsource aspects of the creation process, so this could be the hook, like actually, this could be ideas, this could be hooks. You could be the one to have full control over this area and then outsource the editing, the clipping, and then the overlays and all that stuff. And then you come in and say, correct this point, correct this point, correct this point. Or you could say, all good to go and post. That would be the example, especially someone like myself that has a lot of attachment to what I'm saying, how I'm communicating it, what vibe I want to give off. I trust that there's people that, yes, I have the idea, yes, I have the vibe I want to say, but then I trust that the person that knows hooks more than me, or even 90% of my capacity, the person that could edit the video, the person that could add all the specific details and the lighting to make the video pop off, I can come back as the expert and say, maybe make the video a bit brighter, maybe change the captions to this. So I'm not hiring experts that are far superior to myself and micromanaging everything. I'm simply delegating the certain tasks that I know I'm better than the person at, but I make them complete 90% of the work so that I could look at it with fresh eyes and say, add this thing, maybe take this out, maybe take this out. That makes sense? Speechless, I know. Okay.
You know what? No,
But
I love the way you present stuff just because I am simply a very much on the fly person. So, the way you map stuff out helps me because even though I've been doing this for years, I still I want to film and I want to post and I want to not think about anything, which is why like this is still, that's why I'm here in all of your calls because this helps me understand a more like organized approach to all this stuff. So I love it.
and it's the easiest metaphor that I could come up with is like I've been in the fitness space for many years, and there are people that are experts in fitness, getting stronger, losing body fat, that they are terrible at self coaching. And so everybody like in the powerlifting space, so just people that lift weights to get stronger, there are coaches out there that know so much about how to get stronger, but they still outsource to coaches. And so the reason why I bring that example up is because you like me and Kyla, for example, like helping you guys out, we are here to solve this problem for you guys, but we also experience it and we forget it a lot. And so that's why like it's so difficult for other people that even though they know how to do this and they are comfortable with telling people what to do in this, struggle with it themselves is because we are too close to the intricacies that we don't know what's more valuable and what's not as valuable. And that's why there's people in the fitness space that hire coaches, even if they're the expert. It's because that person can come in with fresh eyes and distinguish what's valuable and what's not. So when it comes to, I mean, when Kyla brought up the example here, this is for someone like her because she, even though knows all the, like, and myself, I'm going to put myself in this conversation too. When we know the intricacies that go into making the content and posting the content for your guys' business, we struggle to do it within ourselves at times because we are so in the trenches with our own thing and we have all the context in the world about our own business that when we provide the same systems for ourselves, we talk ourselves out of it. And that's why it's so important to bring on another voice to make sure that they could just look at everything from a bird's eye view. And so to go back to your guys' examples, you guys have no problem with outsourcing. You have no problem like with the idea of outsourcing because of like everyone's telling you that. You're like, yeah, of course. But especially if you have too much attachment to certain stages of the process when it comes to outsourcing, that's where having fresh eyes like us come in and go, all right, this is the step-by-step process that goes into a Sydney video, an Alexandra video, that goes into a Kia video. And these are the things where even though you have attachment to it, the bulk of the work to get it done is not worth your time, even though if you find it valuable. So the way you address this is that you have all the different stages. So you have ideation, you have filming, editing, and posting. You can either hire an expert that knows more about editing than you, and you could shut up about that. Like, I'm not telling you guys to shut up. I'm saying like you could forget about that. Or you can describe what goes into an edited video, give it to a person that knows less than you that can get 90% of the bulk work done so that you could come in at the very end and just give your approval or modify certain things. And so it's up to you guys to determine what you deem valuable and what stages of the process you want to have a voice in. And if it's having a voice because you're afraid of giving up control, that's where the expert method comes in, where it's learning how to give up control. But if you want to have a voice because you enjoy the process of making the stuff, stay in that department, but get people that get 90% of the work done in the areas that dread you, even though you love the overall process. You may love ideation and hooks and all that stuff and even filming, but you hate editing the pauses, you hate adding captions. So you get someone to do the editing to 90% satisfaction, and then you come in the very end to give your check mark off. Thumbs up if that makes sense, or a mic or any of that sort in the comments. All good. Beauty. So we have a few minutes before we have to wrap it up. But does anyone want to ask in their example, like in their business, how to apply it in something that they've been thinking about? So, for example, like if you guys are trying to figure this out within content creation, if you want me to give a personalized example for you that you could take away with.
So I'm learning with you guys, but one thing that I have I guess content marketing agency, right? So I'm helping people strategize the content, plan the content, prepare the content, I'm filming the content, kind of like what Kyla does. And one thing that I am doing is I'm providing 30 days of content included in their package, and then they have the option for me to manage their social media. so I can get a retainer, or they can take it over themselves. And so a lot of people are like, oh no, you do it. So what I'm running into now is I'm managing five. I just signed someone else, so 5 accounts plus my own.
Yeah.
And so I asked my mother to help. All I need her to do is schedule them, because my goal has always been to have the clients post at least 3 to 5 stays scheduled out on Instagram.
Yeah.
And I can't do it. I'm having a hard time doing it. So I'm literally posting day of. Landon. I'm literally posting day of. Sorry, boys
Boy.
home from school, spring break. Hey, Landon. So I'm literally posting 5 posts a day instead of having them planned out. So I like to ideate, I like to create, I like to conceptualize and all those things. And I don't really have time to do that and give more time to the strategic portion and looking at their stuff to help grow them. I'm learning more about it because I'm doing the day to day.
Yeah.
So I'm ready to hire my mom to help me to just literally post. And I just need to have the creative ready for her, the caption ready for her, and the hook. And all she has to do, and the drafts, I'm going to give her my phone, and all she has to do is take like the drafts and schedule them day to day. And so that would help me just kind of free up a little bit more time. And then I think the next person would be the person who would be another clone of me once I learn all I need to learn to do the creative portions.
Okay, so then the first question is how to outsource the scheduling properly, or was there?
Scheduling. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that would be the first thing. That's the easiest thing to outsource. So with your mom, for example, I would make sure that it's something that even your kids could do, like metaphorically speak. Why is scheduled? Like something that metaphorically your kids could do, or someone off the street could do if you just give them like a 5 minute rundown for how to do the thing. And so, something, an example would be like if I say schedule it, what goes into scheduling? It could be grab the video, grab file, it could be the grab caption, and then it could be open browser or the app, depending on what it is. But then when you get into the selection of it, what goes into it? There's selecting the video, there's uh, pasting caption. Maybe it's picking the audio, like if there's a training audio that you do, whatever your practice is. But then there's scheduling. So there's all these micro steps that go into it to get the task of scheduling done that you would have to, for example, put here and here into like a Google Sheet. And then this is like the next step that she does after she gathers everything. This is the video that she finds. This is the caption that she pastes. You want to find the third audio, whatever the system is. And then when it comes to scheduling, all the steps that go into scheduling. So the first step would probably be like doing it with her. So you do it like done for you just to show her the steps. And then you run it again, like done with you, where you watch alongside her, make sure that she gets everything done, point out the things that she's missing. And then you do another one where you don't say anything, you see what she's done, and then you correct the next execution process until she's able to complete the scheduling task that you need her to do without you ever to be there. And then if she's ready, you bring her to the next editing stage if you want to outsource editing to her, or you figure out a way to systemize the editing process for someone else. But when it comes to like scheduling for your mom, I would make sure that you write out all the details that go into scheduling. Because there's some things that you like obviously do, and for you it's obvious, but you write out the obvious steps as obvious as possible so that your mom can follow it to a T. And then from there, you make sure that she could do it on, you train her to do it on her own by being there with her and doing it for her and then doing it with her up until she could do it herself. And then you don't have to worry about it. You're like, hey, mom, schedule this. And she knows scheduling this means, okay, I got to grab the file. I got to grab the caption that she wrote. I got to open Instagram. I got to pick the video, paste the caption when I move into the next stage. pick the trending audio, and then go to the scheduling section and always select 10:10 a.m. That's everything that would go into it. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Amazing. So if I'll give a few more questions for everybody else. If you guys have a question, you could speak now or forever hold your peace and we could wrap it up. But I want to make sure that you guys have everything that you want to ask first. Did you have a question, Alexandria? Probably. There you go. Yeah, it did freeze for a second, but if not, then just gonna make sure. Perfect. So we're gonna wrap it up here. I'm gonna post a call in the group if you guys want to go back into what I discussed. It will be recorded, posted in the group. But if you have any questions, message me in the community or message me on WhatsApp if you have my number. But if not, I'll be anticipating when you ask the questions, like wherever. But that's pretty much it. Hope that was helpful. Let me know if you have anything, and we'll see you next time. Ciao, guys.
Thanks, Liam. Have a good one.